The massive alien ship appeared without warning. One moment, Earth's skies were normal. The next, a vessel the size of Manhattan hovered above the United Nations building in New York. Panic spread across the globe as news channels broadcast the same footage over and over. The ship was beautiful in a terrifying way. Its metal skin shimmered with colors humans had never seen before. It made no sound. It simply waited. After 24 hours of silence, the ship sent a message to every electronic device on Earth, at once. Phones, computers, televisions, even old radios suddenly carried the same voice. Deep, calm, and clearly not human. People of Earth, we are the Varaxians. We have watched your planet for centuries. The time has come for your species to prove its worth. We offer a challenge. If you win, we leave your solar system forever. If you lose, your planet and people become ours to command. You have 2 Earth weeks to prepare your champions. Joe Bennett didn't hear the message when it first played. He was too busy downing his 6th beer at O'Malley's bar in Las Vegas. His bachelor party was going exactly as planned, which meant it was getting out of hand. Come on, Joe. One more shot. Sam Rodriguez, his best friend since middle school, pushed a small glass toward him. Sam's Air Force uniform jacket was now tied around her waist, her short black hair sticking up from running her hands through it too many times. I think I've had enough, Joe said, but he took the shot anyway. The room spun a little. Tomorrow, he'd regret all of this. But tonight was his last night of freedom before marrying his longtime girlfriend on Saturday. Never enough on bachelor night, Keith Daniels yelled from across the table. Keith had been Joe's college roommate, a former wrestling champion who had let himself go after taking an accounting job. He was now red-faced and louder than usual. Allison Wright adjusted her glasses and sipped her cocktail carefully. She was the odd one out in the group, a brilliant physics professor who had bonded with Joe over a shared love of old sci-fi movies when they met at a university event years ago. Statistically speaking, you've already consumed enough alcohol to ensure a 94% chance of a severe hangover, she said with a small smile. That's why we brought you, Allison, Peter Grant said, throwing an arm around her shoulders, to give us the exact odds of our bad decisions. Peter was the party planner of the group, always knowing which clubs to visit and how to get on every VIP list. His IT job paid well, but his real talent was finding trouble to get into. The 5 friends continued their drinking and laughing as the night grew later. They moved from O'Malley's to the Neon Lounge, then to the Starlight Casino. Somewhere around 2 a.m., they found themselves in a small office building where a man in a suit was talking very seriously about humanity's future and brave volunteers. None of them remembered signing anything. None of them remembered stumbling back to their hotel. And none of them remembered that the entire planet was in the middle of a first contact situation with an alien species. Joe woke up to the worst headache of his life. The hotel room curtains were open, sending painful daggers of sunlight into his eyes. He groaned and rolled over, finding Keith passed out on the floor and Peter sprawled across the foot of the bed. His phone rang with a sound that felt like it was drilling directly into his brain. Joe fumbled for it and pressed it to his ear without checking who was calling. Hello? His voice sounded like gravel. Is this Joseph Bennett? The woman's voice was crisp, official. Yeah, that's me. Who's this? This is General Lisa Owens, United States Air Force. I need you and the other 4 volunteers to report to Nellis Air Force Base immediately. Joe sat up, wincing at the pain. I think you have the wrong number. I'm not in the Air Force. I'm aware of that, Mr. Bennett. However, you and your friends signed binding government documents last night volunteering for a matter of global security. A car is already on its way to your hotel. Please wake your companions and be ready to leave in 20 minutes. The line went dead. Joe stared at his phone, trying to make sense of the conversation through his pounding headache. Guys, he croaked. Guys, wake up. I think we did something really stupid last night. 45 minutes later, the 5 friends sat in a conference room at Nellis Air Force Base. They were still in their clothes from the night before, all nursing hangovers from hell. A table of water bottles, pain relievers, and coffee had been set up, which they attacked gratefully. The door opened and a woman in an Air Force uniform walked in. The stars on her shoulders made Sam sit up straight and almost salute before remembering she wasn't in uniform herself. "I'm General Owens," the woman said without preamble. "I assume none of you remember what you signed up for last night?" 5 blank stares answered her. General Owens sighed. 3 days ago, an alien race called the Varaxians arrived on Earth. They've challenged humanity to a series of contests to determine whether Earth will remain independent or become a vassal planet to their empire. Joe laughed, then stopped when he realized no one else was laughing. "Wait, you're serious?" "Completely serious, Mr. Bennett." The Varaxians specified that the first 5 humans to volunteer after their announcement would become Earth's champions. Due to a clerical error, your drunken signatures on what you probably thought was a bar tab were processed as official volunteer forms. Allison's eyes widened. "So we're, what? Supposed to fight aliens now?" "Not just fight. Complete 5 challenges, tests of physical ability, tactical thinking, endurance, adaptability, and combat. The Varaxians have been training their champions since childhood. Some have been preparing for over 40 years for this exact scenario." Keith put his head in his hands. "And they got us instead? 5 hungover idiots who can barely remember their own names this morning?" "Technically, you volunteered, General," Owen said. "And according to the terms the Varaxians set, no substitutions are allowed. You 5 are now officially Earth's representatives." "This has to be a joke," Peter said, looking around for cameras. "Like one of those prank shows, right?" General Owens walked to a window and raised the blinds. Outside, hovering above the desert, was an enormous ship that defied all laws of physics as humans understood them. "Does that look like a joke to you?" she asked. The 5 friends stared in silence at the alien vessel. Their hangovers suddenly seemed like the least of their problems. Sam was the first to speak. "So what happens now?" "Now," General Owens said, "we try to prepare you as much as possible in 2 weeks. Our best trainers, scientists, and strategists will work with you around the clock. But I won't lie, the Varaxians have been preparing their champions for decades. You're the worst possible team for this job." Joe looked at his friends. Sam with her military background but specializing in planes, not combat. Keith, who hadn't wrestled in years. Allison, who lived in her mind more than her body. And Peter, whose only real skill was finding the next party. Then he looked back at the general. "When do we start?" For the next 3 days, Joe and his friends barely had time to think. The military base turned into a training camp unlike anything they had ever seen. Scientists, soldiers, and government officials rushed around, trying to prepare Earth's unlikely champions. "This isn't going to work," Keith said as he collapsed onto the floor of the gym. They had been running drills for 8 hours straight. His body ached in places he didn't know could feel pain. "I haven't worked out like this since college," Sam wiped sweat from her forehead. She was doing better than the others thanks to her Air Force training, but even she looked exhausted. "At least you used to be an athlete. Peter looks like he's about to die." Peter lay spread eagle on a workout mat, breathing heavily. "I think I am dying." "Do the aliens accept substitutions for dead people?" Allison sat nearby, surrounded by tablets and papers covered in strange symbols. While the others focused on physical training, she studied everything the government knew about the Varaxians. According to these reports, the alien warriors train 14 hours a day, every day, from age 5. They don't even know what a weekend is. Joe grabbed a towel and sat down beside her. "Tell us something helpful, Allison. Something we can use." She pushed her glasses up. "Well, they're extremely organized. Everything follows strict patterns and rules. They value tradition and seem to have trouble with unexpected situations." "So they don't adapt well?" Sam asked, joining them. "Not quickly, at least. Their society is built on order and predictability." Joe nodded slowly. "So maybe our chaos is actually a strength?" A tall man in a military uniform entered the gym. Colonel Frank Nichols was in charge of their physical training, and he never smiled. "Break time's over. Let's go, champions." The friends groaned as they got back to their feet. On the 4th day, they were taken to see the Varaxian ship up close. A small shuttle landed at the base, and a single alien stepped out to meet them. The Varaxian stood nearly 7 feet tall. Its skin was pale blue with patterns that seemed to shift and move. It had 4 arms and walked with perfect balance. Its face had no nose, just breathing slits, and its 3 eyes blinked in sequence rather than together. "I am Xantor, liaison to the humans," it said in perfect English. "I have come to observe the Earth champions and explain the coming challenges." General Owen stepped forward. "These are our volunteers." Xantor's eyes scanned the 5 friends. For a long moment, the alien was silent. Then it made a sound that might have been a laugh. "These are your champions? They appear untrained." "We're working on that," Joe said, standing straighter. "Training takes decades," Xantor replied. "Your species has always been overconfident. This is why the trials are necessary." The alien handed General Owens a small crystal device. "This contains details of the 5 challenges. The first begins in 10 days. After Xantor left, scientists studied the crystal. It projected holograms showing the challenge sites and basic rules. The images only confirmed what they already feared. The Varaxians had designed everything to favor their own strengths. That night, the 5 friends gathered in their shared quarters. The mood was dark. "We should just run away," Peter suggested. "Fake our deaths and hide in the mountains." "And doom the entire planet?" Sam shook her head. "Not an option." Keith opened a bag of chips he had smuggled in. "I still don't understand why they picked Earth now. What do they want with us?" "Resources, probably," Allison said. "Or maybe they're expanding their territory. Their files mention 17 other planets they've conquered." Joe had been quiet, thinking. "Have any planets ever beaten them in these challenges?" 2, Allison answered. "But those species had advanced technology we don't have." "So we've got nothing," Keith muttered. "We've got us," Joe said. "And maybe that's our only advantage. They've trained their whole lives for one specific way of fighting. But humans, we wing it. We improvise. We make mistakes and learn from them." "Is winging it really our strategy? Against aliens who've been planning this for generations?" Sam asked. Joe shrugged. "Got any better ideas?" No one did. The next day, they met Dr. Eleanor Miller, the lead scientist studying the Varaxians. She showed them videos of the alien warriors training. Their movements were perfect, precise. Every action calculated for maximum efficiency. "Their physiology is different from ours," Dr. Miller explained. "They're stronger and faster, but they also have weaknesses. Their bodies process oxygen differently. They struggle in environments with high humidity, and they seem to have trouble processing multiple unexpected inputs at once, what we might call sensory overload." Sam leaned forward. "So we need to confuse them?" "Possibly," Dr. Miller nodded. "Their society values order above all else. Chaos disturbs them deeply." "We're definitely good at chaos," Peter said with a small smile. As training continued, each friend found their own role. Sam worked on strategy and leadership. Keith focused on regaining his wrestling skills. Allison absorbed everything she could about alien psychology. Peter, surprisingly, became the team's spirit, keeping morale up when things looked bleak, and Joe tried to bring it all together, to make 5 hungover volunteers into something resembling a team. 1 week after they began, General Owens called them to a new section of the base. Inside a large hangar, engineers had built replicas of the challenge courses based on the Varaxian information. "This is where you'll spend your final week," she said. "The first challenge is a physical obstacle course, testing strength, speed, and agility. You'll be competing against a Varaxian who has trained on courses like this since childhood." They stared at the massive structure. It looked impossible. Walls too high to climb, gaps too wide to jump, weights too heavy to lift. "We're supposed to complete that?" Keith asked. "Not just complete it," General Owen said. "You need to beat an alien who's been training for decades." The friends exchanged glances. The reality of their situation was sinking in. They were Earth's last hope, and they were nowhere near ready. That night, Joe couldn't sleep. He slipped out of bed and wandered to the training hangar. To his surprise, he found Allison already there, studying the course. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked. She shook her head. I've been calculating the physical requirements for each obstacle, based on human capabilities compared to what we know about Varaxians. It doesn't look good, Joe. Yeah, I figured. He sat beside her. My wedding was supposed to be tomorrow. I'm sorry. It's funny. I was nervous about getting married. Now all I can think about is how much I want to see her again. He looked at the impossible course. We need to find an edge, Allison. Something unexpected. She nodded slowly. The Varaxians value perfection and following rules. Maybe we need to look at the rules differently. Find loopholes they wouldn't consider. Like cheating? Joe asked. Like creative interpretation? Allison corrected with a small smile. Let's go wake the others. We need to rethink our approach. The day of the first challenge arrived too quickly. A massive arena had been built in the desert outside Las Vegas. Thousands of people filled the stands, with billions more watching on screens around the world. The fate of Earth would be decided by 5 friends who still felt the effects of their hangovers from 2 weeks ago. Joe looked at his team as they waited in the preparation room. Sam was stretching, her face serious. Keith was bouncing on his toes, trying to get his blood flowing. Peter was oddly calm, while Allison reviewed notes on a tablet one last time. Remember the plan? Joe said quietly. We don't need to be perfect. We just need to finish. General Owens entered the room. It's time. The Varaxians are already in the arena. They walked through a long tunnel toward growing noise. When they emerged, the sunlight was blinding. The crowd roared, some in support, others in disbelief at their ordinary appearance. Across the arena stood 5 Varaxians. Unlike Xantur, these aliens wore minimal armor that showed off their muscular blue bodies. They stood perfectly still, like statues. A floating platform descended from the sky. On it stood Xantur and a group of humans in suits, world leaders and diplomats. Welcome to the first challenge, Xantur announced, voice booming across the arena. Physical prowess will be tested through the obstacle course. The alien gestured to a complex structure that looked even more impossible than the practice version. Each team will send 1 champion. The winner earns 1 point. First team to 3 points claims victory for their species. The human officials looked nervous. One stepped forward. The Secretary General of the United Nations. May the best species win, she said, though her voice lacked confidence. The Varaxians selected their champion, a tall warrior with darker blue skin. The human team huddled. I'll go, Keith said. I'm the strongest. No one argued. Keith stepped forward as Earth's champion. The course was explained. Climb the wall, cross the hanging bars, carry weights across narrow beams, swing across a pit, and sprint to the finish. Simple in concept, nearly impossible in execution. The alien went first. Its movements were perfect. 4 arms gripped the wall as it climbed without effort. It swung across bars, balanced perfectly on beams while carrying heavy weights, and leaped across gaps with incredible precision. The crowd watched in silence as the Varaxian completed the course in just under 4 minutes. Then it was Keith's turn. He approached the wall with determination. His wrestling background helped, but having only 2 arms made climbing much harder. He made it to the top but was already breathing heavily. The hanging bars were worse. Keith's hands slipped on the 3rd bar and he nearly fell. Somehow he recovered and continued, but much slower than the Varaxian. When he reached the weights, Keith's strategy changed. Instead of carrying them properly across the beams, he rolled them. This was much slower but safer. The Varaxians watched with confusion. This wasn't how the challenge was meant to be completed. Is that allowed? Joe asked General Owens, who had joined them. She shrugged. The rules don't specify how the weights move across the beams, just that they must reach the other side. By the time Keith reached the pit, he was exhausted. The swing looked impossible, a rope hanging over a 30-foot drop to mud below. Keith hesitated, then did something unexpected. He sat on the edge and simply dropped into the pit. The crowd gasped. The Varaxians looked stunned. What is he doing? Sam asked, worried. Allison smiled. Being creative. Keith landed in the mud with a splash, climbed out the other side and began the final sprint. He was covered in mud, moving slowly but still going. The rules state participants must cross the pit, Allison explained. They don't say how. Keith crossed the finish line 8 minutes after he started, twice as slow as the Varaxian. The alien team stood rigid, clearly unhappy but unable to argue. The rules had been followed, just not as expected. Zontur announced the Varaxian victory for the first challenge. The score was now 1-0 in favor of the aliens. As Keith rejoined his friends, covered in mud but smiling, Joe patted his back. Good job. I lost, Keith said, but you finished, Joe replied. And you showed them something they didn't expect. The second challenge began an hour later. This one would test tactical thinking through a complex strategy game similar to chess, but in 3 dimensions and with changing rules. Allison stepped forward as Earth's champion. Her opponent was a slender Varaxian with patterns that swirled rapidly across its skin. The game took place on a holographic board between them. The pieces, representing different units and powers, glowed with bright colors. The rules were explained, though they seemed to change slightly every few moves. Allison started cautiously, studying the Varaxian strategy. The alien played with confidence born from decades of similar games. Its moves were textbook perfect, but Allison had spent her life studying patterns and breaking them. When the rules shifted, she adapted quickly. While the Varaxian relied on practiced strategies, Allison created new ones on the spot. The game lasted nearly 2 hours. The crowd grew quiet as the match intensified. Even the other Varaxians seemed impressed by Allison's unexpected skill. In the end, though, experience won. The Varaxian made a subtle move that Allison didn't see coming until too late. 3 moves later, her position collapsed. The Varaxians win the second challenge, Zontur announced. The score is now 2-0. Allison returned to her team, disappointed but thoughtful. Their minds work differently than ours. They see patterns we don't. But you almost had them, Peter said. They looked worried. They were, Allison agreed. They don't expect us to be clever. General Owens approached with news. The third challenge is tomorrow. Endurance. What kind of endurance? Sam asked. Pain tolerance and stamina through environmental extremes. Heat, cold, discomfort. The Varaxians believe their superior physiology will give them an easy win. Joe looked at his friends. They needed this victory, or Earth would lose. 2 more. Varaxian wins would mean the end of human independence. Who should we choose, he asked. Sam stepped forward. I'll do it. Military training included some endurance tests. Peter shook his head. No, I think I should do this one. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Trust me, Peter said with a small smile. I've spent my entire adult life feeling terrible the morning after parties but still showing up to work. If there's one thing I know, it's how to function while feeling awful. As they left the arena that evening, reporters shouted questions. The world was watching, worried. 2 losses put humanity in a dangerous position. Back at their quarters, the friends gathered to plan for the next day. We're learning about them, Joe said, trying to sound confident. They follow rules exactly. They don't improvise well. They get confused when we do the unexpected. But they're still winning, Keith pointed out. For now, Peter said, looking more serious than they had ever seen him. Tomorrow that changes. Morning came with a sense of doom. The arena looked different today. The obstacle course was gone, replaced by 2 small glass chambers in the center. Screens around the arena would show what happened inside. The 5 friends arrived early to inspect the chambers. Each was about the size of a small bathroom with a single chair inside. What exactly happens in there? Sam asked General Owens. Temperature changes, pain stimuli, discomfort tests. The challenger who asks to stop first loses, Peter nodded, strangely calm. Last night he had asked for something unusual, a bottle of cheap whiskey. The general had reluctantly provided it, and Peter had taken a few drinks before bed. Hair of the dog, he explained to his confused friends. Trust me. Now, as they prepared for the third challenge, Peter looked slightly ill but determined. You sure about this? Joe asked. Completely, Peter said. I've spent 10 years building a tolerance for feeling terrible. Those aliens have no idea what humans can endure when we need to. The stands filled quickly. The mood was tense. Everyone knew Earth needed this win. Xantor appeared on the floating platform with the human officials. The third challenge tests endurance through physical discomfort. Each species will select one champion. The first to request release from the chamber loses. The Varaxians sent forward a warrior with light blue skin covered in what looked like small scales. It moved with the same mechanical precision as the others. Peter stepped forward for humanity. His walk was relaxed, almost lazy. The contrast between the two champions could not have been more striking. The perfect alien warrior versus a slightly hungover party planner in sweatpants. The two entered their separate chambers. The glass doors sealed with a hiss. The challenge begins now, Xantor announced. The first test was heat. The temperature in both chambers rose quickly. Sweat immediately beaded on Peter's forehead. The Varaxian showed no reaction. On the screens, the temperature readings climbed. 100 degrees, 110, 120. Their biology handles heat differently than ours, Allison explained to the others. But they struggle more with cold. As if on cue, the chambers rapidly cooled. Frost formed on the walls. Peter shivered violently but didn't look surprised. The Varaxian's movements slowed, its skin changing color slightly. Now comes the pain testing, General Owens said quietly. Small devices in the chambers activated, sending mild electric shocks through the floors. Peter jumped at the first shock, but then settled into a rhythm of breathing through each jolt. The Varaxian remained stoic. The testing continued for an hour. Heat, cold, shocks, uncomfortable sounds, bright lights. The chambers tilted at odd angles. Water sprayed, then air that smelled terrible. Through it all, Peter maintained a strange smile. When particularly uncomfortable moments hit, he closed his eyes and seemed to go somewhere else in his mind. What is he doing? Keith asked. Sam watched carefully. He's pretending he's hungover. Look at his face. That's his, I have to go to work but I feel like death expression. The alien, meanwhile, was showing signs of strain. Its perfect posture had slipped. The patterns on its skin moved erratically. 2 hours passed, then 3. Neither challenger asked to stop, though both clearly suffered. I don't understand, Xantor said to the human officials, loud enough for microphones to pick up. Your champion has no special training. He's been to approximately 500 parties in his life, Sam called out. That's his training. In the 4th hour, the chambers filled with a thick, humid air. This seemed to affect the Varaxian severely. Its breathing became labored. The patterns on its skin slowed almost to a stop. Peter didn't look great either. His face was pale, his body slumped in the chair. But he kept going. They're reaching dangerous levels, a doctor warned General Owens. We should stop this. We can't, she replied. Earth's future depends on it. Near the 5-hour mark, something unexpected happened. The Varaxian raised a hand and pressed it against the glass. Its mouth moved, forming words they couldn't hear through the sealed chamber. Xantor looked shocked. The Varaxian champion requests release. The human wins. The crowd erupted in cheers. Peter's chamber door opened and he stumbled out. Medics rushed to help him, but he waved them away and walked, unsteadily but upright, back to his team. How? Joe asked, supporting his friend. How did you do that? Peter gave a weak smile. When you've had as many hangovers as I have, you learn to function while feeling terrible. It's just mind over matter. He paused. Also, I may have still been a little drunk from last night. Helped with the nerves. The score was now 2-1. Earth had its first victory. The Varaxians looked troubled as they tended to their defeated champion. They spoke rapidly in their language, gesturing with all 4 arms in what appeared to be an argument. They're confused, Allison observed. Their warrior was physically superior in every way. They don't understand how Peter won. Because they don't understand humans, Sam said. We're good at suffering. The 4th challenge would begin the next day. Adaptability. Both teams were given the night to rest and prepare. Back at their quarters, the friends celebrated Peter's victory with water and sports drinks. He was dehydrated but grinning. 1 down, 2 to go, Joe said. We can actually do this. General Owens arrived with information about the next challenge. Adaptability will test your ability to handle rapidly changing situations. You'll be thrown into environments and scenarios that shift without warning. That sounds perfect for us, Sam said. Humans adapt every day. It's what we do best. Who should take this one? Keith asked. They looked at each other. Sam was the obvious choice with her military background, but Joe stepped forward. I'll do it, he said. Construction work is all about adapting when things go wrong. Plus, I've planned enough home renovations to know nothing ever goes as expected. That night, as the others slept, Joe sat alone by the window, looking at the stars. He wondered if his fiancée was watching the challenges. They hadn't been allowed contact with family or friends since this began. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. General Owens entered with a phone. 5 minutes, she said, handing it to him. Special permission. Joe took the phone with shaking hands and dialed. When her voice answered, his eyes filled with tears. Hey, he said softly. It's me. Sorry I missed the wedding. Her laugh came through, mixed with sobs. You better have a good excuse. The best, he replied. I'm trying to save the world so we can have one. They talked until the general signal time was up. Joe handed back the phone feeling stronger than before. Thank you, he said. Just win tomorrow, she replied. That's all any of us want. Joe nodded, a new determination filling him. Tomorrow he would face an alien who had trained for decades to handle unexpected situations. But the alien had never planned a wedding, dealt with supply shortages on a construction site, or navigated the chaos of human relationships. Tomorrow would test who was truly adaptable, the one who trained for chaos or the one who lived it every day. The arena for the 4th challenge looked like a movie set. Different zones were built across the floor, a forest area, a water section, a climbing wall, and several structures that could change shape. The crowd was larger than ever, Earth's first victory had given people hope. Joe stood at the entrance trying to calm his nerves. Sam handed him a small earpiece. We can't help during the challenge, but we'll be watching, she said, for luck. The Varaxian champion entered from the opposite side. It was smaller than the others but moved with incredible precision. Its skin patterns shifted rapidly, suggesting high alertness. Xantur appeared on the platform. The 4th challenge tests adaptability. The environment will change without warning. Participants must complete objectives as they appear. First to finish 3 objectives wins. Joe nodded, stretching his arms. Construction work had built his strength, but he was no athlete. He would need to think his way through this. Begin, Xantur announced. The first objective appeared on screens around the arena. Cross the water and retrieve the red flag. Joe looked at the water section. 20 feet of deep water with floating platforms. Some platforms looked solid, others unstable. The Varaxian immediately leaped onto the first platform, moving with perfect balance. Joe took a different approach. He grabbed a long pole from the nearby forest section and used it to test each platform before stepping on it. When he found unstable ones, he used the pole to bridge gaps. The Varaxian was faster but fell once when a platform suddenly sank. Joe's slower method kept him dry. Both reached the flag at nearly the same time. Then the environment changed. Water drained away, platforms disappeared, and walls rose from the floor, creating a maze. The second objective appeared. Find the exit path through the changing maze. This was harder. The maze walls moved every 30 seconds. The Varaxian tried to memorize the pattern, looking for a sequence to the changes. Joe tried a simpler approach. He always turned right at every junction. The right-hand rule, Allison said to the others as they watched. It's a basic maze-solving technique. If the walls are connected, eventually you'll find the exit. The Varaxian's method failed when the pattern suddenly changed. It had to backtrack several times. Joe's approach was slower but steadier, and he reached the exit first. The score was 1-1. For the final objective, the entire arena shifted. The floor broke into separate platforms at different heights. Fire, water, and wind elements activated between them. Cross the elemental platforms and reach the golden sphere, Xantur announced. The Varaxian studied the setup, clearly calculating the perfect path. Joe didn't wait. He started jumping immediately, reacting to each new platform as he landed. Look, at the alien, Keith pointed out. It's trying to plan everything first. While Joe is just going for it, Sam said. When the Varaxian finally moved, it was fast and precise. But halfway through, the platforms shifted position. The alien's perfect plan collapsed. It froze momentarily, recalculating. Joe never stopped moving. When platforms changed, he changed with them. When fire flared up, he backed away and found another route. His progress wasn't elegant, but it was constant. He's not trying to be perfect, Allison realized. He's just solving problems as they come. The Varaxian caught up quickly with its superior speed and agility. Both champions approached the final platforms leading to the golden sphere. It was going to be close. Then the Varaxian made a critical mistake. It jumped for a platform that was starting to sink, expecting to land and immediately jump again. But the platform sank faster than expected. The alien landed awkwardly and had to take extra time to recover. Joe seized the moment. He made one final leap, grabbed the golden sphere, and landed hard on his side. He lay there for a moment, catching his breath, before holding up the sphere in triumph. Earth had won the fourth challenge. The overall score was now tied. 2-2, the crowd went wild. The human officials looked shocked but delighted. The Varaxians clustered together, their skin patterns flashing rapidly in what appeared to be agitation. Joe limped back to his friends, who surrounded him with cheers and hugs. One more, he said through heavy breaths. One more win and Earth stays free. General Owens approached with water and news. The final challenge is tomorrow. Combat. The mood sobered instantly. What kind of combat? Sam asked. A combination of all previous skills. Strength, tactics, endurance, adaptability, all focused into direct competition. They returned to their quarters to rest and plan. The final challenge weighed heavily on everyone's mind. Who should go? Keith asked. Sam has the most combat training. Sam shook her head. My training is for air combat, not hand-to-hand. This needs someone who can think fast and take hits. They looked at Joe, who had proven his adaptability today. He nodded slowly. I'll do it, he said. But I need everyone's help to prepare. That night, while the others slept, Joe stepped outside for fresh air. To his surprise, he found a young Varaxian watching the stars. You are tomorrow's champion? The alien asked. Joe nodded. And you? No, I am only a junior science officer. I have been observing humans. The alien's patterns moved slowly across its skin. You are surprising. How so? You have no proper training. Your methods are chaotic. You should not be winning. The alien seemed genuinely puzzled. Yet, you adapt in ways we cannot predict. That's humanity for you, Joe said with a small smile. We're messy but effective. The Varaxian considered this. Our warriors train from childhood for specific scenarios. You train by living? Something like that. Every day is training for humans. We wake up, face problems, solve them however we can, and go to sleep. Then we do it all again. The alien's patterns shifted to a new configuration. Fascinating. Perhaps there is more to learn from your species than we anticipated. The morning of the final challenge arrived too soon. The arena had been transformed into a simple circular platform surrounded by water. No weapons, no obstacles, just two champions and their skills. The Varaxian champion was the largest yet. Its forearms rippled with muscle, and its movement suggested years of combat training. Joe stood opposite, looking small and ordinary by comparison. His friends gave him final words of encouragement. "Remember," Sam said, "they expect you to fight like they would, don't. Be unpredictable," Keith added. "And most importantly," Peter said with a grin, "fight dirty if you have to." Xantur announced the rules. Combat continues until one champion yields or cannot continue. This final challenge will determine which species claims victory. Joe took a deep breath, thinking of everyone counting on him, his friends, his fiancée, all of humanity. The Varaxian moved into a perfect fighting stance. Joe simply raised his fists like a boxer he'd seen in movies. "Begin," Xantur commanded. The fate of Earth rested on a construction worker with a hangover from 2 weeks ago. Against all odds, Joe stepped forward to meet his destiny.